Alrighty, so the first movie we're going to be going over in this David Cronenberg double feature, and probably the one that we'll actually be able to get to today, may have to wait a little bit on the fly, is The Dead Zone. This is the DVD Special Collector's Edition. Got this for $1. I believe this is part of like a 4 or 5 pack of Stephen King adaptations from Paramount. I already had one that was already in the collection, so I didn't feel the need to just go ahead and pick up a big collection, and this was there for $1 in a slim case. Makes it a little bit more roomy on the shelf there. Got some good special features. I'm going ahead and going over this before I get to the movie because I want to do this. We've got Memories from the Dead Zone, The Look of the Dead Zone, Visions and Horror from the Dead Zone, The Politics of the Dead Zone, and Theatrical Trailer. Those first 4 are pretty much all just one documentary cut up into several pieces. They're pretty good, entertaining. You get interviews with, I believe, you definitely get interviews with David Cronenberg. You might even get an interview with Tom Skerritt. And you get an interview with, let me see if I can find her name, Brooke Adams. I think you do get an interview with Brooke Adams. So you've got plenty of people on here. Really interesting stuff. Good DVD. But now let's actually get to the movie itself. So The Dead Zone opens up in an interesting way. We get a lot of these sort of landscape shots. Very well done, very pretty, but also, since it's sort of small town Maine, I believe it is Maine at least, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to take the prettiness of small town Maine and then mix that with sort of this drab, sort of gray look, so that you're going to be getting sort of a more negative impression of these places. It's really well done. I like the shots, and it sort of bleeds into the opening title letters saying The Dead Zone. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool little opening title sequence. Really cool outdoor visuals. After that, we kind of get into some establishing stuff with Christopher Walken and Brooke Adams. That stuff, for whatever reason, really doesn't work. I mean, they seem cute together, but at the same time, the dialogue is really kind of But thankfully, after they really get into the plot of the movie, the main plot, this idea that Johnny, played by Christopher Walken, he gets into a car accident and then gets these psychic powers from this car accident. Something's messed up in his brain, and whatever the mess up was gives him these terrible headaches, but that also gives him these visions. When he touches someone's hand, he can see part of their future or something from their past, stuff like that. He's just psychic. He gets these images in his head. So once we get into that, after he's been in a coma for 5 years and finally wakes up, we start to actually get some good dialogue. It works well, mostly for the characters. I will say that I think Jackie Burroughs, who was in Anne of Green Gables at one time, who plays Johnny's mom, she's a little over the top. Her religious dialogue really comes off as sort of a negative perception of religious people that I think David Cronenberg definitely has, and so he throws that onto this character. It's a little too stereotypical and not very well balanced, I think. She does a good job as the character, but her dialogue and the stuff she's saying, it doesn't work for her. So there's that going on there. But mostly the dialogue is really good, fairly well written, maybe just a couple of instances of just cheesy dialogue, especially there in the beginning before the main plot gets to be a part of it. I'll also say that we've got a number of really good actors here. We've, of course, got Christopher Walken. He's great in most of his scenes. There's a couple of scenes where his sort of over-the-top nature kind of shines, but, I mean, you can kind of overlook those, or some people might even be a big fan of his sort of over-the-top delivery and over-the-top mannerisms in some scenes. I would also say that Brooke Adams as Johnny's girlfriend, or former girlfriend Sarah, she's really good. She plays the part to the hilt. Almost always delivers her lines really well. She's from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You might remember her from that. I don't think I have to mention where Christopher Walken's from. He's in everything, but maybe a couple horror movies that you might know him from would be The Prophecy, and I would also mention Sleepy Hollow, which is kind of more horror themed as well. But yeah, Brooke Adams is really good here. One of the things I really want to focus on here is the cinematography. The shots are just beautiful throughout the movie. Really, really pretty stuff. And after looking up who the cinematographer was, it made a lot of sense. Mark Irwin is the cinematographer here, and you may or may not know that name, but he's worked with Wes Craven. He's worked with Cronenberg several times. He's worked with a lot of really great people. Nowadays, he's kind of shooting schmaltzy, like, teen comedies that are not very good. A lot of direct-to-DVD stuff, a lot of Disney-related stuff, live-action stuff that's just not very good. But mostly, he should be remembered for the stuff he does here, in The Fly, and in several other places. One I can definitely think of that's really good is his camera work in Scream, and his camera work in New Nightmare, directed by Wes Craven. Really good stuff. Very well edited as well. I think a lot of the vision sequences come off as surprising and jarring, and I think that's really what they were going for, so I like the editing here. Also, a lot of good side players here, side actors. You've got Tom Skerritt from Alien as the sheriff. He's really good. Herbert Loam as Dr. Weizak. He's really good. You might remember him from the movie Asylum. You've got, let's see, I think I've got a name here. Nicholas Campbell. Yeah, he plays Frank Dodd. You'll learn about him later in the movie. He gives a pretty darn good performance, very memorable. He's also in Naked Lunch with David Lynch. No, I said David Lynch, sorry. David Cronenberg. I would only say that really my big problems with the movie come from Martin Sheen's character that's just way over the top. Jackie Burroughs' character that's way over the top. Martin Sheen and Jackie Burroughs are both really good actors, but I think the writing for them was just a little over the top, to be just to be right out there. There's not a better way to explain it. Just over the top. The Dead Zone overall is a pretty darn good movie. I like it. It's fun. One of the interesting things here is it's on this list of great 80s horror movies, but I have to say, The Dead Zone is only kind of a horror movie. The images that Johnny gets, those are definitely horror. And some of the stuff with the serial killer, which comes on later in the movie, or sort of the middle part of the movie, that's definitely got some horror or thriller aspects, but it's also got sort of a political thriller bent, a crime thriller bent, a drama with this romance, this sort of tragic romance between Sarah and Johnny, and you've got all this other different stuff. One of the things that I would definitely say here is I think it fits the mold of film noir, or specifically neo-noir, pretty well because of the structure of the movie. Johnny eventually sort of does some detective work. There's sort of this dark feeling just looming over the whole movie. The ending is sort of a semi-sweet, bittersweet kind of thing. Very bitter, but also kind of sweet because what happens, I won't spoil it, but what happens is for the betterment of the world, but in a personal sense, a lot of these characters are absolutely destroyed. It's really, really interesting that way, and I think that really fits the neo-noir mold. I would also say that there's a sort of subversion of the femme fatale character in the character of Sarah. It's really, I think it's really well done, the way that they do it. She's kind of a seductress, but at the same time, she's his rock on which he stands. Johnny's character, that is. Really interesting stuff here. Pretty darn good movie. It's not what I'd call a fun watch. It's kind of heartbreaking. It's got a lot of darkness to it. So if you're wanting to have a fun time, The Dead Zone's really not for you, I think. But if you want a deep sort of intellectual experience, if you want to learn about these characters, if you want to get into their lives, if you want kind of a dark experience, definitely go for The Dead Zone. There's a couple funny moments in here. Martin Sheen's character is so over the top that he's sometimes funny, and so there's that going on. There's a little bit of gore, not a whole lot. There's not really even a whole lot of cursing. There's some, if you're kind of afraid of this in your movies, there's a little bit that could be considered somewhat sacrilege, but by the end of the movie, it kind of all works out, so I say just stick with it. Pretty darn good movie. 1983, this is one of Cronenberg's, I think, better known movies. It's more accessible, and it's even though it's really dark and doesn't have a whole lot of fun to it, it's still a really good movie. Technically excellent. Got some problems with the writing, I think, but overall, a very good movie. And I think out of 10, I would probably give this a 7. Still not one of my favorites, but definitely a good movie and one that I want to continue to revisit over the years. So, The Dead Zone is a good movie. I say pick it up. Buy it on this DVD if you can. I don't think there's a Blu-ray out there, at least in the United States. There might be a UK Blu-ray or an Australian Blu-ray, so maybe look out for that if you have the capabilities to play that. But The Dead Zone, I think, is a very good movie, so definitely check it out. And this is a good way to own it, especially if you can find it for $1 at a pawn shop like I did. Alrighty, so after having done that and being pleasantly surprised, I think, with The Dead Zone, I'm a fan of this movie. I'm definitely pro Cronenberg on that, although I do think his philosophical worldview is a little different, and I'm not a big fan of it, and I wouldn't agree with him. I still think it's a really good movie, and it's definitely got some really good redeemable qualities. After having done that, I now move on to David Cronenberg's The Fly. I may watch this today, I may watch it tomorrow. I know it kind of breaks up the whole idea of a double feature if I do it tomorrow, but honestly, I'm going to be able to get you the video tomorrow earlier if I end up watching The Fly tomorrow as opposed to today. So I think I'm going to wait until tomorrow. I go into work at 4, so I've got a little bit of time left. I'll probably just kind of relax a little bit, and then I'll get back to The Fly tomorrow with your update on my David Cronenberg experience. So, David Cronenberg's The Fly. Looking forward to revisiting it. Thank you guys for watching. Rock on. If you like, subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.